This week, we're going to talk a bit about Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, and then I will take you to see The Tourist over on Netflix. And now your host, it's me, Mike Indeglio. What is up, team? Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just a sneak peek at some things some geeks are doing to get them through their week. And here we are, week 3 of the new Geekly, which is basically the old Geekly, just with rotating chairs of guests and hosts. So this week, we'd planned to get the whole team back together again, myself, my brother, and Mr. Keith Varney. But Keith has had some stuff pop up. Everything is fine, don't sweat it. But he could not join us this week. My brother could also not record today. So we've got a bit of a hodgepodge episode. Nick stopped by a few days ago, and we talked about our experience seeing Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire on the big screen. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. The theater actually sold out, so they opened a second theater, and we got to basically see it by ourselves. So that was cool. Nick's going to stop by. We're going to talk about that, and then I'll talk a little bit about The Tourist, and that will be our episode this week. Nice, short, and concise. There's a little bit of audio hiss. It's not the best audio. I forgot to start the good mic when Nick was here, so I apologize for that. And we've also got a bunch of video games popping around, so we'll be talking more video games in the coming weeks as well. And we're going to get some streams going. Lots of fun stuff will be happening on this channel. I thank you for those who have subscribed. But with no further ado, let's see what me and Nick thought about Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. What is up, team? We're jumping right in. This is our review of Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire?
Frozen Empire.
We just saw it Thursday night.
Opening night. We had basically the theater to ourselves. Pretty much.
We had 2 kids with us, so I think we have a good sampling of their opinions as well. You got that on the drive home. They seem to be enjoying themselves. I think to start at the very beginning, we all enjoyed ourselves. How did you feel about the first one of this reboot connected to the original canon? So not the Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig version, which I also enjoyed.
I like that one too.
This was more. This is the 4th movie in the
continuity of.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so here we are. Are the Ghostbusters back? What did you feel?
I felt that it was a extremely enjoyable popcorn movie, a summer film, even though it's only March.
Yes,
for sure. I laughed. My only criticism, very simple, would be that I think there were a lot of characters and subplots they tried to fit in, and because of that, it ran a little long for me.
And this came in under 2 hours anyway, so it's like an hour 48.
It did felt like there was some dragging, and the parts where I felt like that happened was where they gave some of the extrapolation of the bad guys. This is what was happening. This is why these bad things are happening, and that just got to be a little bit boring for me. And it was a lot of different characters and subplots to follow. Other than that, enjoyed it. Thought the opening was excellent. I enjoyed catching up with the family again, Egon's family from the last movie, and I thought I'll get into a minute what the girls gave me, because I thought they had an interesting take on it. So my daughters are 8th grade and 9th grade, so they have a perspective that might be different than ours because we grew up with the originals. But I'll let you go first there.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's an hour and 55 minutes, so it's under 2 hours. It's short. I think it didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome, though I agree on many fronts. Here are my feelings about the Ghostbusters. I love the Ghostbusters. I love the Ghostbusters animated show.
Yes.
Loved the first 2 movies. I know a lot of people have strong feelings against the second Ghostbusters movie.
I loved it. I don't know
I do too. It nails its tone. They feel very much of their time, but also they remind me of sort of Amblin movies, where they're kind of also just adventure buddy films too, right? It's not really about the ghosts. So I think it's important to start with my feelings of the first Continuum movie. I loved it because I think it had a lot of heart. It got the old gang back together again, but it also had something to say as a movie. It was sort of about saying goodbye, letting go, getting people back together, and your family's past and secrets and charting your own course. And it felt very sort of coming of age, whatnot. This movie knew what it had to do, right? They were trying to establish sort of a new narrative line of allowing the property to continue on, maybe?
Yeah.
They're kind of testing those waters. And also, I thought they would be saying goodbye to the old crew, but they weren't really doing that.
No.
I think they were leaving that door wide open. I haven't read a lot about what they're all feeling about continuing, but it definitely seems like Ernie and Dan Aykroyd are fully in. Definitely Bill Murray was chewing the scenery.
Yes.
I just don't... He's very sort of flip with what projects he's interested in,
Correct.
so it's hard to say. Now, that all said, I think as showing that the Ghostbusters can exist outside of those three, the previous Ghostbusters, I think this did a serviceable job. I love the new cast. I think they capture a lot of that fun. However, every time the old cast is on screen, even if they're just delivering a one-liner, it's just the best.
Yes.
And so I'm so happy they didn't write them off in any way, because there's sort of a little bit of a narrative in this movie about your golden years and how you don't have to retire and how you can keep doing the things you love. There's like a swing at that, but it never really hits. And I think that is my criticism that joins with yours, is that none of the stories, like you said, side missions in a video game,
yeah, that's pretty...
really have any bite. Like, there's sort of a coming-of-age story with the daughter. I'm not quite sure what we're to take from that. There's sort of a subplot with Dan Aykroyd, like, not supposed to be being involved with the Ghostbusters, but sort of sneaking, even though then he's in the sign.
Yes.
It's very muddy. The narrative lines don't make a lot of sense. They're sort of muddy. The big bad is scary looking, but isn't particularly memorable. What this showed me, this movie, I think, is that the universe is still very strong and should be a TV show. Because as a movie, it's not great. Like, interesting, right? It feels very much like that second Thor movie, or the most recent Thor movie, where the movie was awesome, but the big bad kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Now, the first two had great big bads. The first two Ghostbusters. And this sort of is lackluster. But it's so funny to feel... This feels like I'm being very dismissive of the film, but it was a lot of fun. The writing is whip smart.
Yes.
The delivery and the performances are great. Just seeing the Busters bust and sort of all of the... What they do in this movie, which is great, I think, is they made the iconic firehouse a character.
Yes.
You get to see the different floors. You get to see all the old equipment in there and how they're utilizing it. It's very tactile and organic, and all that stuff is great. And there's the one big absurdity that the movie tries to perpetuate that I just can't get... I can't suspend my disbelief is... They show a montage about how the Ghostbusters now exist in this world.
Yes.
And everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
Ghosts are part of this thing. They need the Ghostbusters. And yet they still keep trying to do the thing where, like, you guys broke all this property. We're getting rid of the Ghostbusters.
You're still charlatans, even though everyone has seen
It's been 40 years. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Dan Aykroyd and those guys go off on a side mission, and then they're like, oh, you shouldn't have done this. Well, they had to. Somebody had to do it. None of that makes any sense. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Wasn't that... You could have taken all that out, the subplot of the Ghostbusters being old, and it was just unnecessary. And they tried to pay it off at the very end.
They tried.
But in my opinion, which agrees with yours, we should have just let them be. You know, if you wanted to have... So without trying to spoil too much, if you wanted to sideline Dan Aykroyd's character or give him a reason that he shouldn't be doing it, then make a scenario where he had a heart attack or something where his health was compromised, but you didn't have to play we're too old to be doing this stuff. Because the truth of it is, more than anyone, with the exception of maybe Paul Rudd, Dan Aykroyd was more dialed in than any other character in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like Dan Aykroyd wanted to be the movie. You know what I mean? Like, he was all in. Similarly to Paul Rudd, I felt like, too.
Yeah, well, Paul Rudd always is that way. I wanted to make sure I get the... Okay, so it's written by Jason Reitman again and Gil Keenan. Based on Ghostbusters by Dan Aykroyd. Okay, I thought Dan Aykroyd had a hand in writing this, but he did not. No. And along those lines, here's what I would like to say about the Jason Reitman and Gil Keenan. I think that you could probably argue that they wrote for the actors playing the characters, and my argument is that worked. Because Dan Aykroyd, Patton Oswalt,
and I'm going to get his name wrong. Is it like Nyman Kujani?
Nigel Kujami. I always
Kujami, yeah. Fantastic.
He's great.
So in a scenario like that, you
and I didn't
have
think
to
I was
write
going
for
to like
those
that
characters. At first, I didn't either, but once you figure out where it was going and the way they played him, I thought it was excellent. And again, another thing they smartly did was the way they paired characters together. Mm-hmm. So let me go to the biggest criticism the girls had. Biggest criticism from the girls was that what they felt was missing was the relationship between the brother and sister.
Yeah, which is in the first movie.
The first movie, yeah, shows that. When I asked them, my response to them simply was, I agree with you. I said, but we got that in the first movie. I don't think we needed it again in the second movie. I felt in the first movie the focus was more on the brother, and I felt like you got more focus on the sister in this movie. And so it kind of balanced out a little bit. If you were watching these back to back, you would say, okay, we got both of them, a little bit more for the brother in the first movie, now we're getting a little bit more with the sister in the second movie, who was really good. But Bella and Talia strictly maintained they just felt like that component was missing.
Yeah, I think... Oh, go ahead, finish.
What they did love was the blending of some of the old characters with the new characters. They thought it was great seeing the brother with Slimer and that subplot the whole way through. They liked that Peter Venkman was kind of paired off with Kujani, for like that whole thread a little bit, and how Dan Aykroyd worked with podcast and like all of the outcast Ghostbusters, who came to New York from the first one too. So they did enjoy that the way they paired them off for different scenes and things.
I would say if you get Bill to agree to be in a film, you better use him more. I think he was just underused in this film. They had him a couple one-liners, and you're like, oh, just put him more in the movie. I know that's kind of his function, and there were some fun little Easter eggs in there with him, but just not enough. And look, the movie could have been longer, I think. You felt it dry. I think they needed to pay off some more things. We could have seen more exploration, because I just don't know if there's a future of more movies. I really think, like you said, like what the animated series did was, look, we're in the universe, there's ghosts, go for it, have adventures.
We're going to tell ghost stories. Yep.
Which they could do. I think there's with streaming now, I mean money.
Well, you got to wonder, is that what they're kind of setting up? Because introducing these new characters...
That's the thing. By the end, there are 10 Ghostbusters-ish. I was trying to count. There's a lot. And they're all, for the most part, interesting, quirky little characters. I think the kids sort of got short shrift in this movie. They saddle the sister off on I don't even know, was it a romance?
Sort of.
Or was it like a more teenager friendship, mutual understanding? It was blurry. I think they should have, if they were trying to make it a romance, they should have just done it and taken the heat, because it's like a same-sex kind of younger. But
it was definitely a romance, because she had no need to enter her spirit world unless they were going to.
Okay, well then I think they should have made it more of that. I think they should have doubled down. But whatever, it just felt like it didn't make a lot of sense.
Yes, and why did that... And we're, with nitpick criticisms, again, it's a Ghostbusters movie, so you have to suspend disbelief, but... Well, no, that's not true, because now I'm thinking back to Ghostbusters 2, and Vigo was a fully fleshed talking character. So there's a ghost in the movie who is a speaking character, and you get story from her. But now thinking back, Vigo was, and Gozer too, I guess, to a large degree.
Yeah, this was, the unique portion of this character is that it's very much like an angsty tween, or maybe older, I guess. They're that's 16. High school. Yeah. So, and I think it works. I like the character. It was the motivations were fairly clear, and I guess that one pays off. That character pays off eventually. I guess we could have used the scene where it's explained to her that she's the MacGuffin. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the whole, I think it was pretty good. It was fun.
Fun.
I would say probably you could wait on streaming on this one. I don't know if it's like run to the theater. If you had to pick one movie to go to the theaters, I probably would say Dune, just because...
Yeah, Dune. Or King Kong if you're into
that one's
giant
coming
kaiju.
Up. But it was fun, and it was fun to see it with the kids. It was fun to hear the music again, and see the proton packs, and to see Janine ghostbusting was rad.
Yep.
I just kind of wish there was more of the original Ghostbusters. But that's because I grew up with them. It works without them, too. The first movie I thought was very strong.
Agreed. And I think I would.
It'll be that first movie where they're not involved that is the test.
Yes. And it didn't look like that they're looking to do that, because Dan Aykroyd, in my opinion, he was a through line the whole movie. He wasn't just popping up occasionally. He was in all the set pieces.
Yeah, and my read of his whole storyline is you don't have to hang up the trousers just because you're old, or the boots, or whatever the analogy is, whatever the
jumpsuit, the proton pack, whatever.
Yeah, so we're giving it. We liked it. I feel like it just. I just feel like they were a little hamstrung by knowing they had to do a different type of movie. The first one was like really much an emotional sort of tribute. The second one here had to be a world expander. Mm-hmm. So,
and I like the new characters, the new ghosts that are going to be repeating characters now, similar to Slimer.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. Yes,
I like that because now there's more of them. Mm-hmm. It's not just Slimer. So again, it's clearly not over. And even though I know the critic reviews haven't looked good, I'm pretty sure the audience reviews have been decent. Yeah. So if it has a big weekend open and doesn't drop off too much in week 2, we're going to get another one.
I also hope that they don't. You know what? The weakest malevolent force in this movie was when they had, and also visually, is when they had to show the whole city being destroyed with the ice and stuff. That just, the special effects look sort of, because we're so used to that. But when they do the more practical, smaller scale haunting stuff, it works so much better. It did in the original, it does now. They should just make smaller stories. This is me arguing for the TV show.
The TV show, clearly. Although the one scene where there's some flashbacks.
Who owns that IP? Ghostbusters.
Was it Universal? It was...
Columbia, was it?
Columbia? The one with the torch, right?
Yeah, that's Columbia, I think.
Yeah, because they had that really interesting opening graphic.
So I don't even know what streaming service that would be.
Don't know. The original, when Afterlife popped, it was on a few of the different ones, but I don't quite remember.
Well, I mean, that's not for me to solve, I guess. But
yeah, but like the scene in the theater where they showed the Statue of Liberty from Part 2, I thought that was the best use of the big theater, and that was just a repeat of Part 2. There was nothing in the new movie. I agree, actually. I would say that if you needed to pick certain movies to see in the theater, you didn't actually have to see this one in the theater, even though it was a super fun movie for the theater. Or
you don't need to go to one of the smaller films. As long as it has good sound. I thought the sound was really strong, too. The score was great. And really, there was a lot to love with it. It just, I think it played it a little safe, and it doesn't need to.
Definitely did.
There was like an Avengers scene where they were all packed up and had their suits. There was like 10 Ghostbusters, or like people in the Ghostbusters team that were doing. It felt very video game. In many ways.
Yeah, I didn't actually watch it thinking that, but now that you mentioned side quests, I was kind of like, oh yeah.
Did you ever play the video game that was like a continuation of the story?
I did.
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. It was actually, that's what the original third movie was supposed to be.
I think that's available for free on Epic Game Store at this moment, actually. Okay, so that's our kind of talk through of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now back to the show. Also, I've been watching a show called The Tourist. I don't know how I had missed it initially. It's over on Netflix now. I believe you can also watch it in some other places, but it's definitely both seasons are on Netflix, so you should check it out. I really enjoyed it. My wife and I binged both seasons in a very short matter of time. So let's hear my thoughts on that. All right, so I just finished the first 2 seasons of a show called The Tourist. All the episodes are streaming on Netflix in full Atmos and Dolby Vision, for those who are interested in that stuff. Now, this is a show, I don't have the wiki pulled up, so it is, the BBC released it, takes place in Australia, the first season, and what I love that the BBC always does is that each season is 6 episodes, 6 one-hour episodes, so there's never any filler. The basic premise of The Tourist is this guy wakes up after a car accident that you see, and he has no memory. 0. Can't remember anything. He meets a traffic cop, Helen is her name, and she's the only person that in this world that gives 2 craps about him, because she took the original statement from him in the hospital. And what goes on is an adventure to see who this guy is, who his past, who comes up in his past, why he is where he is, and what happened. It has vibes of very much like there are some humor, there is some drama, there are kind of little cliffhangers at the end of each episode, and at the end you get a pretty at the end of the first season, you get a pretty satisfying answer to the question, but also it's not totally buttoned up because it's messy. And it asks some questions about, does it matter who we were? Can people change? Do the actions that you do stain you for the rest of your, stain you for the rest of your life? It's really great. It's really funny. What I love about it is that there's some body diversity in the show.
Okay.
When it comes to relationships and lead characters, and it doesn't make it about to that, but it is there, and that representation is important. And some of the things they have to say, they don't knock you over the head with it. It's subtle, but they are making a comment about Hollywood, about life, things like that. Very secondary, but I thought it's worth a mention. What's cool is that they intended for the end of the first season to be the end of the series. The response was so positive that they did push out a second season, which I also finished. I binged. It is very different.
Mm-hmm.
It is a little more scattered. It is a cool adventure. You get to learn a little bit more. You get to explore one of the relationships a little bit more. And there is another very sort of satisfying ending that kind of leaves them in a completely different place than the end of the first season, but is really great. I think it's like an 8 out of 10. I feel very satisfied. I really enjoyed it. I plowed through it in 2 weekends. It's all available, and they've said they're pretty much not going to make a season 3. They're happy with where it is, and the leads are busy. So if it was to happen, it would happen years from now, but they're pretty much looking at this as the canon. So this is a perfect time to watch it. You don't have to wait. You can binge through it. The Tourist, high recommend. Great accent work throughout. Really well shot. With kind of interesting depth of field lenses. There's like blurry spots. It's cool. I really liked it. High recommend.
All right. We'll have to put that one on the list to check out.
And now I want to quickly talk a little bit about my weekly rad this week. My weekly rad is just about showing up. My wife flew out to Myrtle Beach this week to support my niece who's starring in her high school musical. And I remember when I was in high school, I did one musical my senior year, and it changed my life. I mean, I think it's no small turn of phrase to say that it did. So many doors opened when I did that show, and I also remember people coming out to support me. And all along my career, good shows, bad shows, indifferent shows, I can remember the people who have consistently made an effort to come out and support me in the small dinky theaters out where nobody else, 50-seat theaters in the middle of nowhere. And so even though sometimes you can't get that free ticket or that free comp, my weekly rad is that you should go out and support your friends, and you should go out and support your family and your loved ones. It doesn't always have to be quid pro quo. Maybe they're not the ones that show up for you, but maybe you can be the one who shows up, who buys a ticket, who goes to that art exhibit that nobody else is going to, or just checks in, makes the call and asks how things are going, how's rehearsal going. So I'm making it very artistic based. It doesn't have to be. You could be supporting, a high-powered friend you have in a high-stress career, and maybe they need a phone call just to let people know they're thinking about them. So anyway, showing up for your friends. It's not always easy. It's not always reciprocated. There's not always a prize at the end for doing it, but it makes an impact, and it's important. So that is my weekly rad this week. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for this little short Geekly. Until we all meet again, remember, you keep on doing the things you find fun. Just don't let anybody yuck your yum. And until we all meet again and geek again, keep on geeking on.